Hi there, it's Margie again from Hush Education. How are you today? Today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about puberty, but I will be speaking about the social and emotional aspects of puberty. A lot of people, when they hear about puberty, think about puberty, talk about puberty, they are concentrating very much upon the physical changes that happen, the changes that happen that maybe are more obvious to other people, the ways that bodies start to change. We've talked about quite a few of those, including height, pimples, people's voice starting to change, people getting new hair on their bodies, changing shape, starting to smell a little bit differently as well. We talked about some changes we call sex-specific, and that means the changes that happen to people who may have a uterus and vagina, for instance, called puberty and periods, or all people who have a penis and scrotum. So we talked about puberty and penises, we talked about wet dreams, we talked about erections. So today, concentrating, as I said, on the social emotional changes that tend to happen during those puberty years as well. Do you know, puberty and adolescence are really times when young people might start to notice a lot of big changes socially and emotionally. That means they might notice that the way they interact with other people changes. They might notice that their mood changes more frequently or it's harder to control. They might notice that their relationship with their families starts to change and perhaps it becomes a relationship that's closer or a little bit different, or sometimes there's a little bit of discord that goes on as well during that time. So these sort of changes can include very much families, also friends, also just peers, so they're perhaps your classmates who are you and not your very best friends. And we can also find that these social and emotional changes are very, very typical, but sometimes people don't tend to admit to them or talk to them as much if it's not brought up as a topic in a classroom session, for instance. You know, one of these important parts of going through puberty, of a child changing into an adult, a young adult at first, is becoming a little bit more independent and learning to be an adult. It's not something that just happens naturally. And independence is very much a part of puberty where people are looking to make some more decisions for themselves. People are wanting to be more responsible, so more responsibility, and also this one we called having more privacy. So spending more time on your own than perhaps being always expected to do everything with your family, with your siblings or your parents if you have them as well. Certainly, puberty is a time where people are looking for new experiences, and we do know that sometimes, particularly young people, don't necessarily think right to the end of every experience they have, so there may be a little bit of risk taking involved, there may be some learning from the decisions that have been made as well, because we need to continue to work on impulse control, and that's something that a lot of scientists say, according to their research, doesn't necessarily completely develop, completely mature until someone is closer to 20 or even in their low 20s as well. We need to think about our family's values, our family's morals, and we have to start to consider whether these match with our own values as well, because there will be times when your parents and carers might have different opinions and different ideas about some of the topics you're starting to consider and you're starting to think about as well. Of course, it's really, really important with the added maturity, the added independence, the added responsibility that comes with puberty, that you also need to recognise that the decisions you make do have natural consequences. One of the things we say that with the rights that you expect to gain as you become an adult, you will also gain responsibilities. And you need to be aware that your actions can cause reactions from other people. Now, I have heard over the years of young people perhaps using puberty as an excuse to be angry or aggressive, an excuse perhaps to say, well, I can't help being moody. I'm going through puberty, it's part of my hormones. And while that is perhaps 100% true, part of that maturity is also taking responsibility for your emotions and recognising that they can reflect the way that others are going to treat you as well. So that is important. A lot of people going through these puberty years are starting to question some of their own beliefs, things that they've previously been told and just accepted as true. Maybe that's starting to change. Maybe it's a time to do some research, ask around, find out some information for yourself if you're having some doubts. It is a time, of course, where friends become much more important in your life, and you may allow them to have a stronger influence than the ones that up until this stage your parents and carers have been having. Again, it's your responsibility to just check the information you're getting. Does it seem right? Does it sound true? Does it reflect your values? Have a little think about that influence that's coming towards you. Do you know, a big part of puberty, probably one of my favourite parts to talk about when we talk about social and emotional aspects, is the changing relationships. And part of that, of course, is that puberty is a time when a lot of people become more interested in romantic and sexual relationships. It's a time when you may start to notice some of your friends and peers in a different way, a more romantic way. You may find that you are experiencing attractions to all different people. Now, this is not always about gender or sexuality. It's a very common time for young people to start to experience all different types of attractions, and it's not necessarily an indication of your future sexual preferences, although it can be, and that's okay as well. A lot of times people will be feeling really strong emotions during relationships. So it's almost as if you might fall in love much faster. You're attracted to someone much quicker. You go through a lot of different times and stages of really liking this person and really liking that person, but also, unfortunately, not liking some people. Because puberty is a time when people might outgrow some of their up until now lifelong friendships. You may start to have different types of interests, have different things that are important to you than used to be. So friendships can be expected to change during this time. A lot of people will experience intense emotions, as I said earlier. They might find that they have much stronger reactions. So I know for people who have testosterone coursing through their veins, part of those puberty hormones, sometimes it's harder to control anger or aggression. Sometimes something you may have walked away from in the past might make you feel like you want to fight about now. Some people, male, female, doesn't matter what gender, will find that they become much more sensitive. They cry more easily. They laugh more easily as well. You might get the giggles and not be able to stop. And I can remember that happening a lot during my puberty years as well. These intense moods can sometimes make people feel quite self-conscious. You may be more aware of what other people are potentially thinking about you or saying about you. And remember, it's not always happening. Sometimes we become just a little bit paranoid about that as well. Do you know, some people are going to be slower to mature, slower to make those good decisions and work out the consequences of those decisions, and you might feel much more mature, much more grown up than some of your friends, for instance, or you may feel that they're growing up much faster than you and you can't keep up with them. But again, I'll say, how boring would our life be if everybody was exactly the same? We're all unique and we all experience puberty in a unique way, and we go through these changes at the time that is going to work for us, not the time that the books might tell us to, or the time that our teachers or even our grown-ups and parents might tell us to. A lot of young people are spending more time with their friends rather than with their family. You might remember a time when your dad was the coolest person on earth and he could do no wrong, and that was something that you were always really proud of. And suddenly dad or mum or another adult in your life might become a little bit embarrassing. It might be that you are starting to be a little bit more conscious of what they're saying and what they're doing, and that's really, really common. It's Quite common also to have hurt feelings and to hurt other people's feelings during this time. So it's hard for your grown-ups to understand that you are becoming more mature and more independent. It's sometimes difficult for them to let go and see that you're not a little kid anymore. So there may be some conflict within families and also very often with siblings. I know I'm one of 5 children. I had 3 older brothers and a sister. My own children are 4 of those, and there comes a time when having your little brother or little sister just pop into your room and touch your stuff and play with your toys is not okay. You want that privacy. You want them to ask permission and not conceive it's okay for you to say, yeah, come on in, I'll spend some time with you. Don't forget, we all have different views, different opinions, different ideas. Puberty is a time where we really need to reflect upon respect for other people, having empathy for others, thinking about our maturity, thinking about the responsibilities, the independence that comes with puberty, and really taking on the responsibilities that come with growing up, with starting to gradually leave childhood and sitting at the little kids' table and starting to enter into young adulthood, being a more mature person, and see how it goes for you. Our next video is going to be all about babies. It's going to be about reproduction. We'll talk about how babies are made, that's called conception, how babies grow and develop inside the mum's uterus, that's called pregnancy, and of course how babies come out, how they get out, and that's called birth. So that's our next video. I look forward to talking to you again then. Thanks for watching. Bye.